have to do it. But I have made, of course, I don't have one near me, but I have made similar to sage spray, but I put it in a little, it's, one of those little roll on containers. It's about this size, but it has the roll on ball. I've done that with it, but you can do that with the cascarilla, add it to the water and use that. You can use that to draw the different symbols over doors and a whole bunch of different things. So there are so many different uses, dry or wet, that you can use that for. Hey, Keith, thank you for joining us. So glad to have you here. Yes, put it in your paint when repainting a room. Love that idea. And hey, Todd, hey, Courtney. What's a recipe for people that aggravate me? Oh, Jeff's here. Hey, Diana, how are you doing? Basically, if people aggravate you, Jeff, and for those of you who don't know, I am being sarcastic here, but you can just kind of throw the whole thing at them. That might get them to go away. And I'm only joking. You guys know me, but Jeff is a jokester, always having fun. So don't take that the wrong way, but yeah, having fun. Vinegar will break down the eggshells, and you have a liquid calcium free. Yes, yep, love it in the gardens. Definitely the perfect place to kind of a whole new meaning of eggshell white paint. Yes. Oh yeah, I do need to start stocking up because we're in the process of looking to buy a house, and if we don't buy new, that poor house is going to be like run through the ringer before we even actually move in, between painting, cleaning, and a whole bunch of other things. And super excited. Hey, Kenneth, thank you for joining us. Okay, and Natalie is backstage, so I'm just going to check the comments real quick, and we are going to take a quick commercial break. But Jeff, I used to taking off my shirt in the past, but that's hard to do in winter. Oh, you're too funny, Jeff. Definitely. We actually talked about you earlier. You're going to be on the show July 18th, and looking forward to that. Super excited for that. But again, thank you everybody for joining us. We are going to take a quick commercial break, and when we return, we'll have Natalie joining us to talk about her experiences. See you guys in a few moments. Welcome back to the show. Super excited. And Jeff just commented that he's going to behave today, but I will believe that when I see that. So if you guys have any questions, like I've told you at the beginning of the show, feel free to ask. We're, even though we have a guest with the show topic, sort of, you guys know I don't really do show topics too much. But just feel free to ask any questions about the paranormal. We're both going to be more than happy to answer those. So before we go any further, let's welcome Natalie to the show.
Hello.
Hey, Natalie. How are you?
Doing good.
Good. Thank you for joining this morning.
No problem. It's a pleasure.
Oh, thank you so much. And we did talk a little bit before you came on about some of your experiences that you had in your bio. Mm-hmm. And what kind of interested me a little bit most about it all is that you started when you were about 10 or 11 because your family started a paranormal team.
Yep.
That's kind of how my son got started, which is why I found it interesting, but he was a little older when we did it. So what was that like?
I've always been sensitive to the paranormal ever since I was a couple years old. Grew up in a house that had activity. But at the age of 10, when I came to live with my dad, they were running a newly started up paranormal team. And obviously at 10, 11 years old, not quite old enough to be able to go on the official investigations, a lot of liability issues. But it actually worked out for my benefit, I feel, because I started learning everything behind the scenes. I learned how to do evidence review. I did the historian side of things. I'd make the phone calls. I'd talk to the clients and do our intakes. So
Mm-hmm.
I got to do everything else. And then as I got older, I started going on the official investigations and not just watching the video recordings afterwards. And I think that helped on so many different levels because a lot of people that get started in the paranormal just jump right in
Mm-hmm.
and they don't realize all the work that has to go into it. 4, 6, 8 hour investigation turns into 72 hours worth of reviewing footage.
Right.
I mean, just you have to slow it down and you think you saw or heard something and then you got to go back and watch it a dozen times and you still don't know. So I really enjoyed the fact that I got that opportunity, and that's an opportunity I don't feel like a lot do. And, age, maturity, there's so many different factors that play a part in it. We were doing private resident cases with that team, which I've continued to do now with my team.
Mm-hmm.
But, at young age as a teenager, there's a level of confidence, there's, a level of professionalism that has to be brought in.
Mm-hmm.
And not just any Joe Blow can go in and do it properly. Anybody can go in and do an investigation, but you're dealing with people's lives. You're dealing with their families and their well-being, their mental health. And you can't just go in and go, oh, yeah, you have a demon running around. Sorry, can't help you. Goodbye.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're only going to make it worse. You have to know what you're doing and how to approach it. Both when it comes to dealing with the client and dealing with whatever activity could be there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know how many times I've run into just people. This one still amazes me is I know people who are on teams that do residentials, and they've admitted to me that they've never once reviewed the evidence that they've gotten on their voice recorder. And I'm like, why? First of all, why bring the voice recorder?
Right.
If you're not going to review it.
Right. I mean,
but
that's
don't be doing residentials if that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, a big portion of what we do and what we collect is through EVPs. I mean, yes, you've got photos and everything, but as technology advances, it makes it a lot harder to sit here and be able to debunk because now we've got all these Photoshop editing softwares. I like old school equipment. Like I love my new age stuff too. Don't get me wrong, but I do like my old school because there's less tampering that can be done with it. It's more authentic.
Yep.
I don't know. I like it better. It takes a little longer to get through, I guess, but
it does. I like my non-tech tools. Yeah. Like the pendulums, the dowsing rods, and the different things in that aspect. I love using those versus. Todd just says he fell in love with you with the old school equipment because Todd's old school.
Yeah, I mean, I like both. There are some equipment though that I like to stay away from that I'm not a fan of. Mm-hmm. SLS, I just can't do it.
No, I don't use it for many reasons because we actually a team member of ours had it and everyone was like, oh my goodness, we're investigating a museum. Mm-hmm. And they're like, look, the image is mocking you because it was doing the same movements the guy was doing. And I'm like, guys, he's standing in front of a window because it was a glass panel before you go see the display behind the panel. And it's like, it's picking up the reflection. But I have, I'm going to probably embarrass myself with this one, but I have downloaded one of the SLS for the phones, and I hate phone apps. But when you do public investigations or ghost tours, the guests want instant gratification. Yep. So I use it as an opportunity to teach, but it also gives those wanting something, the same thing with the spirit box.
Yep. So I feel the same way when it comes to phone apps. Like there's only one app out there that I will use, and I don't even use all the features because it does have an SLS, and I can't stand that feature on there. But they do have like a spirit box. Sorry, cat. They do have a spirit box and a Vox mod on it, and that's Ghost Tube that I use.
Don't think that's the one I got.
It's the only one that I kind of like. We've had some good hits off of it, but it is just that, when you're doing these open investigations, First, you have so many people there, depending on the size of your group, that the amount of contamination for your evidence is like no other. It makes it really hard to be able to go through and determine what's paranormal and what's not. So when you're going on these ghost hunts, you're more there for the experience than you are anything else. And at those times, then yeah, pulling out those apps are fine.
Right.
But doing that like in somebody's home or business, like no, you're not going to see me do that. That's the last thing I want.
Right. Exactly.
The power of suggestion alone is a strong uphill battle for us that we face in the field. And if something comes across and says, you know, murder, kill, demonic, Satan, or anything like that, those common words that we get, you know, an owner or somebody who lives in the home hears that and they're lost. They're gone because that is all they're going to be able to focus on.
Yeah. And the other thing too, I mean, granted, I know anybody can look anything up or, you know, they see the TV shows and they hear things, but you don't want to pull out your phone and show residential, you know, clients, hey, you know, you could use your phone to use this. Because then when you leave, they're downloading the app and they're either encouraging or antagonizing or, you know, and they're investigating on their own.
Yeah. And that's one thing that we tell people, do not investigate your own home. If something's going on, yeah, you can set a recorder or a camera or whatever, then walk away. Leave it. Don't mess with it. Don't do anything. You know, just 20, 30 seconds worth of an audio clip, and then don't even listen to it. Just send it right to me and we'll review it.
Yeah. I won't even investigate my own home. You know, if I know there's things that come and go, but if something happens, I pretend it doesn't happen because I just, you know, I do this for a living. I don't want to be doing this in my own home.
Young, dumb, and stupid. Do as I say, not as I do. I think's how that goes. I've done that before. I've learned over the years that is not the way to do it. Which again is one of those things. Like because I've been doing this for so long. I mean, we're 19 years now that I've been investigating officially. And I've done all the things that I shouldn't have done originally. And it was part of that learning experience. It's part of that learning curve. So when people are like, oh, I have this going on. Okay, did you do this? Did you do this? Yeah. Okay. This is how you need to go about fixing this. And this is how we prevent from that happening again.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's funny too, because we had gotten a spirit box that we were going to use because we were hosting at the one museum that I volunteered at. We actually hosted ghost hunts, I guess you would say, and lectures on how to teach people about the paranormal. And I had gotten that just so they could use it and, you know, have that. Because I mean, how do you explain? Well, you're going to use your digital voice recorder now. And when you go home, put headphones on and listen to it. They don't want that. But I wouldn't even turn it on in our house. We actually went down the road to a park to turn it on, to play with it, to test it out.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's how we keep it out of the house.
You do what you got to do. You know, your home is supposed to be your sanctuary. It's supposed to be your safe space. And it works both ways for us as investigators and for our clients. You know, if you're not comfortable staying in your own home, you have to walk around all night or stay in a hotel or with family members and you can't go home when it's dark out. There's a problem.
Right. Yeah. Especially if you're paying rent or a mortgage and utilities and
right. And that stuff's not cheap.
No, that always breaks my heart when people say I can't afford to move, but yet they're not living in their house and they're paying for a hotel room. Or, you know, they're with family and it's like, that's
Those are the ones, those and the cases that involve children. Those are the ones that get my heartstrings.
Exactly. Yep. And one thing that I had found interesting, we had one case, we went in several times, the team that I was a part of out in Vegas for this case. And we did determine that there was paranormal activity there. Of course, one group that went in before my group went in, they, of course, said it was demonic and blamed it on the daughter using a Ouija board. But when we went in, the Ouija board did kind of ramp up activity, but it wasn't the cause of it. But because the previous team or previous group, because they were part of our team, told her that it was demonic, she put the house up for sale and moved. And it was a gorgeous house on a golf course. I mean, absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, I had a young team of investigators that came to me. They had talked with a medium and a demonologist through Zoom call.
Mm-hmm.
And because they were experiencing activity after visiting a location, and the medium and the demonologist looked at each other and they were like, should we tell them? And one of them goes, yeah, I think we should. And they're like, you have a demon that lives in your basement, and if you don't stop doing investigations, it's going to slaughter you in your sleep at night.
Even if it's true, you don't tell the client that.
Oh my, but it's okay because over this Zoom call, I can do an exorcism on your home.
For $10,000.
And it's not going to get rid of it, but it will help. But you have to stop investigating because otherwise it's going to kill you.
Mm-hmm.
No. Oh my God. It makes
No.
my blood boil just thinking about it.
Oh, yeah, that to me, that sounds like someone who doesn't believe in paranormal investigations and wants to eliminate anybody from doing it.
But these younger investigators, the younger group, the people who are just getting started, I don't know if it's just being naive or and just not being taught what to look for. I don't know, but they're susceptible to these, in a sense, paranormal predators that are going after them. Mostly, it's usually for money because that's when you get, for a 30-minute session, it's $500, but you got to do it 6 times in a month, and just no. We don't charge for our investigations. We don't charge to help people. Why should I be profiting over somebody else's turmoil? It makes no sense.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, there's so many different ways to profit from this field without preying on other individuals. Like in my case, I write books. I help with different things, teach classes and all, there are so many different things that can be done without, and still be able to offer everything free to clients.
Yeah. And like, even with my workshops, like they've been free. It's always been if you wish to make a donation, great.
Yep.
I appreciate it.
Yep.
But I'm not charging you for it.
Right. Yep. We've done several like that.
I don't know. I just don't see the point in it. And maybe it's trying to reach a whole different clientele base. Maybe that's where it comes from. But I've lived there, like penny pinching, trying to figure out funding. Like you can't always afford to go to some of these bigger events.
No.
And meet, the pair of celebrities. But you can still find the same information right at your fingertips and not have to pay an arm and a leg.
Right. And that's why I host this show. This is why I started this one in October. And then Philip Wyatt, my co-host for Ghost Education 101, we've been hosting it since COVID started because we wanted the free information out there. And, we always tell people, we're not saying that we're right and everyone else is wrong. We're giving information based on what we know works. And, we're trying to teach people to think for themselves by giving them what we feel is the proper information.
Right. Yeah. And I was doing my workshops in person before COVID at one of our local metaphysical shops. But then when COVID hit, it just wasn't possible. So we went virtual like everybody else. And it worked great. And you've been able to reach a whole new group of people.
Exactly.
And it's been wonderful. Like I do miss that in-person contact, talking with people. But I love the convenience of, being able to stay in my pajamas and talk. And not have to worry about it. Like I can grab a cup of coffee. I don't have to go out and order one. I can just make a pot and I'm good. So it's just things like that. I don't know, but the online has helped. We've reached a lot more people. We've got followings now overseas. So we're just able to reach a larger clientele base, and I love it.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I remember before COVID, the team I was on, we had so many big plans to help the community. We had actually, we were doing a flashlight because it was just before Easter. We had scheduled a flashlight Easter egg hunt. And we had, all these glow in the dark Easter eggs, and and it was free to the kids who wanted to come. And we were going to have different vendors set up, and those are the ones that were paying for the actual venue. And then the rest of the money went to a nonprofit, anything over the expenses. And we had, we had over 30 vendors agree to come and pay for it. And almost 1,000 kids signed up for it. And then we're sitting here scrambling, figuring, okay, how are we going to get enough eggs, first of all? How are we going to make it fair so everybody gets the same amount of eggs?
Right. Yeah.
But then COVID hit and we had to cancel it. And it was like, and then we had another fundraiser for a museum we were doing, and we would have brought in over $5,000 just for the museum.
Yeah.
And we had to cancel that as well. And
Yeah.
it was so heartbreaking.
And we're doing something like that this October. Thankfully, now that, you know, COVID's finally mellowing.
Right.
Fingers crossed. But you know, good juju. Gotta put good juju out there in the universe. We're doing an event in October, and it's fundraising to help bring this location that I've been investigating since the beginning back to life. You know, it's been falling apart and it needs major repairs. And we're actually doing an investigation this weekend, this Saturday there. So all that money in turn is turning around and it's going back to the location to help. And 9 times out of 10, we don't walk away with the pay cut. Like, we're paying the fees for the tickets and everything. We're paying for just the location alone. And then all the money turns around and goes back to the owner. So everything comes out of our pocket, our travel expenses, everything.
Yep. Yeah, I know when we did the investigations, it was at McCaw School of Mines out in Henderson, Nevada. And it was a mining museum created by a local school teacher who developed and they offer free tours for kids during the week. So they would bring in, and they even paid for the buses. And it was really a great idea to teach about mining in Nevada. And we would do the investigations there at night. And basically what we did is and just to cover my butt, is we would accept all the money in. We would pay for expenses such as, you know, any marketing, any food that we brought in and drinks for the guests to have. And then we'd give them all the receipts and all the money and all the ticket sales in one big envelope, along with their evidence that we got from that night. And we would submit that to them. And but 100% outside of anything, you know, and half the stuff out of pocket we paid for ourselves anyway.
Yeah, like if anybody's been on an investigation with us, I think probably the one thing we're known for is that we provide an outrageous amount of snacks and drinks. We usually have like a whole room designated just for all of that, because it's pizza, it's candy, it's chips, it's, you know, Gatorade, water, sodas. Like, we go all out, and we don't charge extra on our fees. Like, our tickets, unless we absolutely have to because a place is too expensive for our basic prices, we keep everything at $75 a person. And that is just enough to cover for the location and the other expenses, and then that's it. But we try to keep it feasible and affordable for anybody and everybody to be able to be a part of it. And our investigations are usually 8+ hours. The one that we're doing this weekend, it's from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. So, I mean, you're getting almost a 12-hour investigation for one solid price. I mean, that's a lot better than what you can find with a lot of others.
Yeah, and that's not bad at all. If it's $75, that's like $10 an hour. You can't even rent banquet halls for that.
And we offer camping. So you can camp on site, so you don't have to buy a hotel. You know, and I mean, $25 for camping is a lot more feasible than $150 for one night at a hotel.
Right. Yeah. Yep, definitely. Yeah. Scrolling down through my questions real quick to make sure I get them all before we. Okay. Oh, that's one thing I don't think we mentioned yet. Your current team. I know we talked about your parents starting a team and your family doing a team, but what about your current team?
So after my dad separated from my mom, I ended up branching out by this point on my own, and that was in 2014 when I started up my first team. And we've gone through some changes, some name changes, some group changes over the years. But now we are at Darkly Obscured Paranormal Investigations. We are based both here in Missouri as our HQ, but we also have a division in Kansas, down in Wichita. So we're starting to branch out. We're growing a little bit more rapidly than we thought we would, because we started with just 2 of us. Me and one of my other investigators, Kelly, out in Kansas, and now we've got a full team. And we still have applications coming in for other people that are wanting to join and be of assistance. So I'm kind of excited about that. But Our team varies. So we all come from different walks of life. We all have different religious backgrounds. For me, two of my other investigators, Norse paganism is where we're at. We've got Christian, we've got Catholic, non-denominational, like we've got them all.
Mhm.
Which for me, I love about my team
Right.
because we're able to help people and help on the cases and tailor, the blessings, the cleansings and stuff like that to their
Yeah.
beliefs, to make them feel more comfortable, more at home, and more accepted and understood. And I think that's a crucial part. So having that on my team is great. We've got, psychics, mediums, sensitives, clairvoyancy, clairaudient, kind of naming off me. But my team has those as well. And then we have some that are total skeptics, and we have some that are hardcore believers. And having that mix really helps balance everything out.
Yeah, it does. I mean, on the last team I was on, we had that mix. We had Roman Catholic. I mean, I was raised Roman Catholic, but now I follow the paganism, more of a kitchen witchy type thing. And you name it, we had it on that team.
But gave that away.
What was that?
The eggshells that gave that away.
Oh, I love that. That's like my favorite tool.
I have a carton because I save my eggs after I use them, save shells. So I've got like an egg carton that's just full of them that I've got all smashed up and need to go out to the garden.
And it was funny because a couple months ago, someone had asked it and I had said, oh yeah, use cascarilla. And then everybody's like, what's that? What's that? And now everybody's asking me. And that's why I wanted to talk about it today, because I had someone actually message me saying, what is this? But yeah, I love it. But the team I have now it's just my husband, my son, and I. So you have me that, is the believer. My son, he just kind of tags along. He enjoys it, but he's not, I don't think
my other half. That's my fiance.
I don't think he's in it for the long haul. Then whatchamacallit, my husband, he's the true skeptic, even though he's had experiences, but he's the one that I come running down the stairs with the computer and the headphones. I'm like, listen to this. And he's like, I don't hear anything.
Yeah, I have one of those. I understand that.
So it's always, I just, it's one of those things where it's kind of interesting how we get through stuff. But I know so many other people, and I work with so many other people, that if I needed help, and something that we don't do, we can easily get the help for them. And that's what I love about networking in this field. It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah. And that's what I love about with the Warren Legacy Foundation, just being able to consult and having those connections to other people in the field that have that experience and have dealt with cases that I haven't before. And it's all about that para-unity. And I know that word gets thrown around a lot, but that's how we learn. And that's why I've taken such a presence when it comes to trying to teach the younger generations with the kids in the paranormal. It's been one of those that one of these days we will no longer be the hunters. We are going to be the hunted. Right. And they're the ones that are going to be doing the hunting. So I would like for them to know what they're doing, and I'd like for them to do it right. Because while we set the trend, they're the ones that are going to be following up, and they're the ones that are going into people's homes.
Sorry, my son's handing me the cat and the dog's going crazy.
But they're the ones that are going into the home. So they need to know how to, hold themselves to a professional level and how to handle a client. Because when you're in somebody's home, it is a whole different ball field as to how you handle it and what you say and what you don't say. And there's just so many moving elements. They need to be taught, because we can't get mad at them if we're not teaching them. Now, if they're choosing not to listen and do it, well, then that's on their own. But for the ones that do want to learn, so many teams are like, if you're not 18, if you're not 21, sorry, you're SOL.
Right.
What do kids do best? When you tell them they can't do something, they're going to turn around and go do it anyways. And that's how we end up in these situations with the Ouija boards and other forms of communication that are bringing stuff in. Granted, it keeps us in business, but it is not the business that I want.
Right.
Have been. So
Yeah, no, I'm always a firm believer of teaching kids ahead of time. I know on the one team I was on, my son was getting ready to head up the junior division because he was only 16 at the 15 or 16 at the time.
Yep.
And it was more or less for training.
Yeah.
They would go on the public investigations with us or places that we've already deemed, not dangerous.
Exactly.
But until they were 18, they didn't step foot on a residential.
Yep.
And that was more liability for them because they weren't 18.
Well, and like I have a niece, she's 9 right now, going on, 28, in the attitude phase, but she's always been sensitive. She's always been able to communicate, and she's been super interested in getting involved. She wants to go on investigations. And I'm like, when you get a little bit older, we'll sit down and we'll talk.
Mhm.
You want to review evidence with me, I will happily hand it over and let you listen to that audio. But if we're going to do this, you're going to do it the same way that I did.
Mm-hmm.
And you do lose a lot of people at that point because they're like, well, then what's the fun in that? But I don't know. There's just something about it when you're reviewing evidence that when you get into it, it's kind of like a trance.
Yeah. As long as it's not 20 hours of the spirit box.
Right. Oh my gosh, I hate that sound. Pretty sure I have PTSD when I hear that sound. I get a nervous twitch in my eye and just.
And it's funny because I have had good, evidence from that we've deemed is real evidence, not just catching a radio station perfectly,
Right.
But it's having to listen to it.
Well, it's like I loved using the Estes method,
Yes.
the blindfold, the headphones, the spirit box, and when I really get into that trance state, for me, I don't know if it's from being a sensitive or if it's my abilities or if it's just the way that my brain works.
Mhm.
When I'm in that trance, I'm still processing everything. And I can tell the difference between when it's a radio station and when there's something actually there.
Mhm.
And I don't know how it is for everybody else because I'm not them.
Right.
I don't know if it's just as soon as they hear something that they spit it out. I've had other people go under and, they don't say hardly 2 words the whole time. But then when I get in there, I usually tend to talk quite a bit.
Mhm.
But I'm still able to kind of cipher through what's what.
Right.
So
Yep.
I don't know how that is for everybody else.
It's interesting. I kind of, sometimes I'll hear things and I don't say it like I should, which I know ruins the whole, experiment. But it's more or less you're in a zone. Like you said, you're just in a zone and I'm not thinking about talking. I'm thinking about listening.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's times where that has happened and I'll try like afterwards, I'll say something like when I come out from the session, then I'll be like, so this, and this. Sometimes like I'll hear, like laughing or something, or there was one time we were at the McIntyre. I was doing the Estes method and it felt like somebody was like right in my face. And it's one of those where you just wanted to push them back because they were so close in your bubble. And I kept saying that. And we were getting responses from Ghost Tube.
Sorry.
You're okay. From the other spirit box on the phone app that were correlating with what I was saying and with what I was experiencing. And like I could feel the vibrations in the chair because somebody was walking behind me. And then the spirit box would say something that matched up to that. And then almost instantly when I would say something, it was right after the spirit box did. So, having multiple things going at once is great because you can cross-reference and see, are you getting the same kind of responses from different forms of equipment?
Yep. Yeah. And one question I want to ask, because I ask this of everybody, the Ovilus. I know, just like the SLS, there's a lot of questions. I'm even still skeptical about it just because, it's a database that's already pre-programmed.
Yeah. And that is exactly where the issue lies.
Yeah.
Those are one of those for me that no matter how good the evidence is, I can't claim it as being paranormal. I don't think I ever could claim it as being absolutely paranormal,
right?
Because there are too many open-ended questions that I just can't prove. I can't decipher whether was it the program or was it legit.
Right. And that's the problem, that because I had one experience, one of the team members got the Ovilus because he wanted to experiment with it and try to almost prove that it didn't work the way people thought it would. Mm-hmm. And we were using it all night long in this location, all different areas, nothing. It wasn't even giving us a single word. Yeah. Then it got handed over to me, and I was just wandering down a hallway, and I turned a corner to where I was no longer visible to the rest of the team because I was in my own little world, asking questions and trying to get this thing to work. And all of a sudden, Death, Devil, Demon, Sacrifice.
Yep.
Came all, and I was like, and I'm like, okay, well, that's typical. But then I asked, who are you going to sacrifice? And it came back, you, just as something ran its finger down my back. So there's that personal experience tied with that. And then the thing didn't speak the rest of the night. We had other investigators who would walk into the room alone to see if it would trigger it. But the thing was silent the rest of the night. So that's one of those where I still don't trust it as paranormal evidence, but it's like, how do you explain? It kind of leaves some questions open.
I do have one investigator that when he walks in the room, it does one of two things. It either ramps everything up or they shut off and they stop. But the moment he leaves the room, everything kicks right back up again. And it's something about him. It's something about just how he is and who he is, that when he walks in that room, they're either love him and they want to talk to him and interact with him, or they're like, we're not coming close. We're good. We'll see you in the next room when you get there. Like, it's just kind of how it works.
They're like, he's here. Don't talk.
Right, exactly. So we always give him so much grief. We had the spirit box. Every time he would say something, it would go, idiot, idiot. He'd ask a question, go, idiot, and then the rest of us would ask questions for hours and nothing. And as soon as he would speak up, shut up, idiot, idiot.
So, yeah. One investigator I investigated with, we always got FU whenever he would try to talk and ask questions, but then I would ask questions and it would answer politely.
Yeah. We've had some of those before, like especially like with brothels and stuff that, the females it goes one or two ways. Either it's a male spirit coming through and they're very derogatory towards the women, or it's a female coming through and she just will not acknowledge the men. Like she wants nothing to do with them. Gets mad at them, things like that. So it's interesting to see that dynamic and how that works.
Right. And you also need to, I always tell people, you need to take into consideration the history of the location in the aspect of how, people treated people at the time. Because like we used to investigate old mob locations and, all the women would get their butts touched, their hair pulled and nasty comments, but the men, they were respectfully talked to each other. But that's kind of how the mob was back then when they were hanging out at their bars.
Yep. Yeah. We've got, the one location, like where we're going this weekend, the male entity that's there, he gets very handsy with the women, but will make the men violently sick. He is not a fan. He will rile them up. He will do, if their significant other is there, he'll mess with them to rile the husband or boyfriend up. And it's the weirdest thing. It is the weirdest thing to experience.
Yep. Yeah. When you go back to that place, I don't know if you know who Monique Tucson is. Absolutely love her. Had her on the show a couple months back, but bring her to that location. That'll really mess with the spirit.
Right.
So I definitely want to go on an investigation with her to find out how it's different than a normal one, just because I can only imagine,
Yeah. I've got an ever-growing list of people I would love to investigate with.
Oh, my list keeps growing too as well.
Yep.
Yeah. And Leigh just said, I wonder what they would do with a transgender or intersex. Yeah. I'm always curious as to how some of these spirits are reacting to the world today and how different it is.
I don't, and that's a good question because, their time is different than ours. So many things have changed. I mean, yes. We just talked about, the way that the male entities would react to women is different than what you might get today. And I don't know, that's a good, Good question.
Yeah.
I
I'm thinking.
have done an investigation with a hermaphrodite before.
Mhm.
So I guess I was a little bit of both spectrums.
Mhm.
But I mean, I can't say like in that location that anything was different, like they didn't react differently. But
Mhm.
they can, do they know, or do they just see the
A
way that,
person. Yeah.
yeah, and if you look more masculine, then you're considered a male, versus if you're more feminine, you look like a female.
Right.
Yeah, and those are one of those things, like unless they're answering us on those kind of questions, like it's all speculation, but
Right.
it's still interesting.
Yeah. Yep. And it's one of those things, because it's a sensitive topic in today's world. How do you bring that up on an investigation unless you know the people you're investigating with? Because
Right.
the last thing you want to do is to upset someone that you've brought on the investigation with you.
Ironically, I was just having that conversation last night at work.
Perfect timing. No.
Right. And that was it. Like nowadays, you just don't know.
Mhm.
I don't.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think it would necessarily change anything, in the sense of how things would work. Maybe the energy that's given off. Um, maybe there's a male that has more feminine energy, and the female spirits maybe are more attracted to that when normally they wouldn't be,
Right.
because it's something that maybe they can, that energy, the residual energy, pretty much the energy signal,
Mhm.
they can relate to. They're drawn towards that.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. It makes them comfortable or something. Who knows?
Mhm.
But also, I mean, kind of going off of the researching aspect of it, I know you've mentioned in your bio that you do a lot of research before going to locations and everything like that. How important do you feel research ahead of time is? Because I know a lot of people like to go in blind. I'm not one of those people. I like to know everything there is about a location because it helps me guide my EVPs or, the questions I
Oh,
ask.
I'm on
Okay.
both sides.
Okay.
Depending on what my job on the investigation is going to be,
Mhm.
is going to determine what's going on. Because if I'm trying to go in blind and I'm doing like psychic medium type work, then yeah,
Mhm.
I like to have minimal information. 9 times out of 10, though, me and usually one other, which is my field historian, usually know the history.
Mhm.
Everyone else knows bits and pieces about the history, but I'll leave out like the claims, the experiences, things like that. I'll try to leave those out so that we don't have that power of suggestion.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I don't consider myself psychic or anything at all. I'm sensitive and an
Mhm.
empath, but all the cases came through me anyway. So it was real hard for me to go in completely blind
Yeah,
because everything came through me. So that was one thing I never really
yeah,
focused on developing. I let the other members of the team do that.
yep. Yeah, I like it bounces around. It depends on which investigators with me for that investigation and what
Mhm.
they're capable of. We have one female on the team. She's very gifted,
Mhm.
but she hasn't been given the opportunity to really work with it and to expand on her abilities and to understand it and to be able to control a lot of it, because it's really hard if you don't have your protection up. You don't have those walls and those barriers and the ground rules for whoever you're talking with.
Mhm.
They'll run you down and trample you, and you lost. You're done.
Mhm.
There's just no going back from that one.
Yep.
But as we've been working through investigations and working with her, she's working on those
Mhm.
abilities, working
Yep.
on putting those guards up. And like, okay, listen, take a number, take a seat. I'll get to you when I get to you.
Yeah, exactly. I know when we've brought psychics on our investigations, we actually don't even give them the address. We send someone to pick them up because we don't want to have, well, they had the address, they could have researched it. We don't want, we remove any doubt
Mhm.
whatsoever. So
What about remote viewing? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it works. I know I fail left and right with it. I am no good at it, but I know several people who it's worked for. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we haven't used a whole lot of it. I haven't done a whole
Mhm.
lot of it. I have no idea if what I have done has worked or not. I usually don't get a response back after that,
Mhm.
to let me know if it assisted or not, and that's okay.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just one of those, like, I know I'm starting to see more and more people using that
Yep.
for investigations before going
That's
in.
the COVID.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good part of it. But yeah, I guess I never really thought about the having them picked up and not being
Right.
given the address.
Yeah. Cause I mean, that just removes, they didn't even have the address. How could they have,
Yeah.
even though they could tell you up and down, no, I didn't research the property, but how do you prove that? You
Right.
know?
Right.
But for remote viewing, if you want more information, I need to have them on this show, but I know they work day jobs. But the host of Bigfoot and the Bunny, absolutely love their show name. But we've had them on Ghost Education 101, and then they've had us on their show. And they do a lot with remote viewing. In fact, I think she even was taking a class on it, and they talk about it all the time on their shows. And I know if there's anyone I need to remote view, I reach out to them because they do really good with it. But for me, I've tried people put up on Facebook what's inside the box, and I'm like, I'm way off. I'm not even, plant, animal, it's like 101 questions.
Yeah.
I'm like so far off.
Yeah. Yeah. Or pick a card or something like that. Yeah. Yeah. I usually scroll past those.
Yeah. I'd like to do more with it, but I like my research aspect of it.
But I think like that's with anything really in this field, it's practice. Practice makes perfect. And you really have to be open and expand on those. Meditation is a great start for those that are just getting started and maybe they don't quite understand, or maybe you go somewhere and all of a sudden you've got 20 spirits bombarding you, wanting your help, it's overwhelming and that's draining.
Yeah.
Paranormal hangover is a real thing.
Yep. Yeah. And it's especially if you go to locations that don't get a lot of people. I know we were filming for the documentary Real Hunts Ghost Towns, and we went to Gold Point. And there, of course, we're going to use the spirit box because there's no radio stations within, 500 miles. It's a dead, darkest spot in Nevada, out in the middle of nowhere. And the minute we turned the spirit box on, there was like, hello, hi, 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 and it was like, oh my God, they've been waiting for us.
Right. And there are times like going to a location, like, do they know we're coming ahead of time? Like, I've always considered that when talking to like a client over the phone before we come in. Obviously they've got to be listening. They got to know something,
Right.
if it's an intelligent entity. But I know that like when we're traveling these like long distances, if we haven't, nobody's been there, nobody's talked about it, do they know?
I think they do. We've actually had two instances. Same investigator that I used to work with out in Vegas. Him and I were going to Goldfield to do some filming and investigate the Florence mine up there, and help the owner with some stuff. And on our way there, we got run off the road twice. We had a bald eagle swoop in front of us, and we almost hit it. It was one of those where something didn't want us to get there. It could have all been coincidental, but it was just really, really weird.
Sign.
Right. And then just before COVID was on lockdown, before we went on lockdown, we had a client that we were trying to help together. And the day of the investigation, his engine block cracked and broke. So he called me and I had to go pick him up. But when I was getting ready to leave to go pick him up, our hot water heater busted and we had water everywhere. And we were waiting for maintenance to come fix the hot water heater. So, and just as I got the heater fixed, I was getting ready to leave again. My son's music school, because he was homeschooled, but he went to School of Rock for music. They called and said that his entire band was exposed to COVID and we needed to go on a 10-day lockdown. So it's like something, it was like every time we would resolve one roadblock, another roadblock came up.
Yeah. And those are things that for me, I always feel like you need to pay attention. And clearly, if it's happening once, it's happening twice. Okay, coincidence. When you get to like the fourth time, then you're like, okay, clearly there's a message here for me.
Right. And this was a poor 87-year-old woman. And I'm like, we still didn't, it was, the beginning of COVID. We still didn't know too much. And I'm like, I can't go and risk the, even though my son, I was like twice removed or whatever. I still couldn't risk that. And so I ended up calling the other investigator, and he found someone to go with him. But it was just like something didn't want me there. It, it's like let's knock down the dominoes one at a time.
Right. Right.
So one thing I do like to talk about is protection when you go on paranormal investigations. I know people who do both. They completely protect themselves because they don't want to be affected. And then I know several psychics who go in with their tools ready, but they don't use them because they don't want to block off any psychic abilities. How do you prepare to go on an investigation, and what kind of tools do you guys use?
So, especially if that's all coming from different walks of life, we each kind of do our own ritual before and after an investigation.
Mm-hmm.
We'll do cleansings, we'll do sagings. We've created our own protection vials.
Mm-hmm.
We have a set that's specifically for our team, so it's got a little extra oomph to it. And then we also have the ones that we provide for the public.
Mm-hmm.
So the ones that we have, like they're wax sealed. They've been charged from the eclipse that we had years ago. You know, like there's so many different elements that make up this little vial, but we keep those with us for investigations. I have a like little military thigh bag pack that we have two of them. One's for medical supplies, and one is for all my crystals and sage, because we come very well prepared.
I have a suitcase for that.
Yeah. So, you know, we've got all these different pieces that we can use. You know, I've had an investigator, she was, you know, just being bombarded. So we gave her particular crystals and stuff, and then we took her outside and removed her from the property, and we're able to kind of reset. But it was just one of those, like, anxiety alone can like really mess with an investigator. But we also have to understand, like, there's other things that can affect our anxiety that can cause it, you know, high amounts of EMF, you know, you're staying too close to the microwave, or, you know, something like that. Those things can affect it. And we have to be mindful of how we're proceeding. Like for that, I try to turn off the power to the main location if they have any, just so that we can cut back on EMF spikes, and then we do our base walk and make sure that nothing's spiking, all the fun stuff of the job. But for our protection vials, you know, we keep them. We've done glass etching, so we'll draw sigils, sigils on them, little charms. You know, it could be St. Michael's, it could be a cross, it could be a pentacle, it could be whatever. And we can attach those to it, so it gives them customization for that person. And a lot of it really comes down to just that intent, that focus. But we'll do prayer before and after. If somebody wants to do their own personal little thing before the investigation, they can. I like to take a shower after an investigation, and you know, use my salt scrubs and stuff like that, because that just kind of gets all the extra residual crap off me.
Yeah, I make herbal bath bags, and I have one that's called an exorcism bag, and it just removes any negative energies that are attached to you.
Yeah,
and love those. So what do you mind sharing what you guys put in your protection vials? I'm just curious.
So my good old herbologist, Justin, he's the main one that creates all the concoctions of everything. But you know, we've got eggshells in there. We've got black tourmaline. We have salts. I'm pretty sure there was like some sage in there, peppercorn oil that we use, things like that.
Okay. Yeah, that's about the stuff that I use. I also use a mixture of like rosemary, sage, and marjoram.
I don't know if we had marjoram in there, but the rosemary and sage we did.
Okay. Yeah, because it's funny. I have little vials over the door frames in our house of that mixture with black sea salt. And it's everywhere. But I had someone open up my case when we were at an event, because I had them go in there and get something. And in addition to the video camera, the still camera, and, you know, all the different tools in there, there was a small vial of my herbs, and then there was a vial of the cascarilla. And but then it also had a blessed sea salt that I got from Reverend Sean Whittington, and St. Michael's. And they're like, it was like a hodgepodge of protection stuff that I threw in there.
Yeah,
But,
we've got a little bit of everything with our
mhm,
stuff, and we're constantly trying new things. Like we've created some of our own oils, like vanishing oils,
mhm,
protection oils, things like that. Like we created one, we call it the shades,
mhm.
and that one's for vanishing. Um, Thankfully, we haven't had to use it. We've been pretty lucky on that. So it just sits in its specific little glass jar,
Mhm.
and like when we do our magic work, and not everybody believes in it or
Mhm.
is open to it. Like those are all moving factors for it. But when we sit down, my other investigator and I, when we sit down to do this, like we put our intent, it is our
Mhm.
only focus. We put so much care into creating these
Yeah.
vials, and these oils and everything that we end up using, that when we're using them on investigations, we know that that intent is going to be attached to it. Like we
Mhm.
know it's going to get the job done.
Yep.
Like those are the big guns when nothing else is working and they don't want to play nice, and we're like, all right, we're done.
Right. Exactly.
Let's get down to business.
Yeah, and it's funny because I always used to laugh. The one team I was on, I was the only witch, and I actually kept it to myself for the first several months. The only people who knew was the founder and his director,
Mhm.
because I wanted them to know in case they needed me, and they hadn't needed me, in that aspect. So I would do investigations and help them out. And then there was one case that it came out what I did, and a couple people shied away from me.
Yep.
Some wouldn't even talk to me. But after an investigation, lo and behold, they all came running to me because they wanted my sage spray that I made.
Right. Right. Yeah, we've had a few encounters like that, and I don't take it to heart.
Mhm. Yeah.
It doesn't bother me. I'm not shy about talking about it. I'm
Mhm.
definitely my broom is not hiding in the closet.
Oh yeah. No.
When you walk into my home, you're aware. You like
Yeah. Yeah.
like I can't really see it very well, but I have the witch's house rules on my
Hmm.
fridge.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I used to hide. I mean, I lived in Florida. I'm trying to think since '97. And where we lived in Florida, actually, where we're moving to right now, we're in Central Florida, but we're moving back to the coast. There was a Catholic church, a Roman Catholic church, like on every street corner.
Mhm.
It was and so I kept it to myself. I didn't tell people, because it was like, what am I going to. But then moving to Vegas kind of helped me because nobody out there cared.
My family is very split. I've got
Mhm.
half that are very Christian Baptist,
Yep.
some that were Catholic at one point
Hmm.
group, and then I have my pagans, eclectics, Wiccans, all my spiritualists little group over here. So
Yep.
the family is very diverse. So half of the
Hmm.
family I can talk to
Hmm.
about it, and then the other half we don't discuss it. So
Right. Yeah, that's one thing we never really discussed. It was always politics and religion. We just kind of kept, you believe what you want to believe, do your own thing. But when my grandmother died, we all kind of split away. My mom and I kind of split away and started doing our own thing, and that's when it was more pagan, is what we realized we were comfortable with. And she practices completely different than I do, which is what I love about that. Is you can pick and choose and make what works for you work.
right.
It's not you have to follow this or I probably going to
Yep.
piss a lot of people off by saying this, but you have to do X, Y, and Z or you're going to hell.
Yep.
That always rubbed me wrong about the Catholic Church.
I asked way too many questions and was told to just believe what you're taught and
Hmm.
nothing else.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do it.
Right.
So my best friend growing up, I used to go to the synagogue with her every other weekend,
Hmm.
and I would go for their holidays. And that was kind of how I started learning about other religions.
Yeah.
And I kind of got my toe dipped in that water.
Mhm.
And then when I came to live with my dad, everything just kind of got opened up, and they're like, hello, there's a whole world worth of religions that you can explore, and they're at your fingertips. Just you have to try them, you have to look, you have to see, the year and a day, and like I went through all of that
Hmm.
for pretty much my witchy training.
Yep.
um,
Yep.
and
Yep.
it's just one of those things. And it's funny because so many people are like, they expect witches with boils and everything. And for the longest time, I didn't have any cats, but I did have a black bunny.
Hmm.
And he was my familiar, he was my everything. And people are like, well, where's your black cat if you practice witchcraft? I was like, it's not a cat, it's a bunny.
Mhm.
Let's be accurate about this.
Yep. And we have a white cat with patches on it. So it's
I
like I
had
didn't go for the black cat.
I used to have a black Egyptian Bombay and then
Mhm.
just a American long-haired white cat. So I had
Mhm.
like yin and yang going.
Perfect.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
They were
And
great.
I always just tell people, it just because one religion doesn't work for someone else, doesn't mean it's not going to work for you. If you find comfort, use it.
Yep.
And that's
Some people just believe in the universe. They just
mhm.
believe in energy, and that is a-okay.
Yep.
Your faith comes from what you believe in, not
Mhm.
necessarily who you believe in.
Right. Yep. Yeah. And that's what I like about this field is because we can help so many people based on,
Mhm.
their religious beliefs.
Yep,
Yep.
absolutely.
Yeah. Actually, let me scroll back to some of my questions. Getting back real quick to children. I know you work with different children and teaching them how to become paranormal investigators eventually, but one question that comes up a lot on the show is how do you help your child not be afraid?
So first is just acknowledging what's going on. Children are responding to the way that we act. They watch our every move. And even like the slightest of things, the shifting of eyes when you look at each other because you're uncertain, like kids pick
Mhm.
up on that and they know. And especially if they're
Mhm.
sensitive, they can feel the emotions that you have at that time. So staying calm and just talk to them about it. Like
Mhm.
explain what's going on. You can still break it down into some layman terms for children.
Mhm.
Explain what's going on, but ask them questions. Like, it's okay. You don't have to be afraid. Can you describe what you're seeing? Is it a person? Do they have long hair? Do they have short hair? Get
Mhm.
those kind of descriptions. Let them know that it's okay. And if you're scared, you can tell whoever you're seeing or whatever you're seeing, I don't want you here right now. You're scaring me. Like,
Mhm.
be open to being able to speak up and say that.
Mhm.
Um, and if they want to tell them, this is my room and you're not allowed in here. You can stand in the hallway. That's okay, but you're not allowed in this room. They can set those boundaries as well, and that's a great foundation for them to start with.
Yeah. Yeah. And I always, if it's a relative that's, haunting them, if you say, I'm scared, please leave me alone right now. If it's a relative, they're going to,
Yeah,
because that's the last thing that they want to do is to
right.
scare you.
Yep.
And then one thing that I've done with people who have kids is I tell them to help the child come up with protective barriers.
Mhm.
So, put their stuffed animals out in a perimeter, almost like their army type
Yep.
of thing. And, I always tell people it's whatever you believe in that'll protect you. So if you believe your teddy bear is going to protect you, it
Yep.
has a 99% chance that it will.
Yep. Yeah, and it kind of ties right back into with witchcraft.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people think that you need to have altars and candles and athames and all this stuff. And in reality, you don't need any of it.
Mm-hmm.
They're great to help focus. You
Right.
focus your intent, you focus your energy. And the same thing goes for like a teddy bear
Mm-hmm.
or anything, your favorite blanket,
Mm-hmm.
your favorite, I don't know, binky, I guess. Anything really will work. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so it's just based on what your intent is and what you're putting your focus on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And and I always tell it works with adults too, not just kids. So,
Yep.
um, there it was. Some of the tools that I saw you use in your bio, you also mentioned that you use trigger objects.
Yeah.
I love trigger objects. Which ones are your favorite, and what kind of results have you had?
So we do have a Boo Bear, Scare Bear.
Mm-hmm.
I love using those. I bring lollipops to investigations when we know there's going to be kids. I like to give them
Mm-hmm.
candy. Um, I don't know if they can use them or not, but I kind of hope they do. But we like to give little trinkets. The ghost balls, cat balls.
Mm-hmm.
We use those a lot. Um, a rubber ball, like a little bouncy ball. We use those. Um, I mean, really, just about anything I can get my hands on. That's where like knowing some of the history kind of comes into play.
Mm-hmm.
Like if it's an orphanage or something, or like if it was an all girls school, you might bring a couple dolls in.
Mm-hmm.
For the boys, maybe you could use like a deck of cards, or the little bouncy ball or something. Like it just kind of varies on the location as to what we use and when.
Okay. Yeah. Because I know a lot of people, what was it? They use music sometimes. And that's what I was going to say. My co-host for Ghost Ed, he actually has a plate that is electronic censored. So if the trigger object moves, the plate will pick that up.
Oh, that's cool. I like
yeah,
that.
Even if it's just a slight movement that you can't see on video or anything like that, the plate will pick it up that it was touched or moved.
Very nice.
I need to find out where he got it from. I think he made it.
It's funny because my Spotify account has a playlist just for investigations, because it's usually like 1920s, 30s type music that we're playing. So yeah, I have my own little like Spotify playlist. I just, okay, we need music, and then I just click and let it go.
That actually works. I never even thought of that with Spotify.
Yep.
I usually turn my phone off and leave it in the car.
We just did the Leibold Mansion in Abilene, Kansas, and we used the Spotify out there, and we were getting some interesting results from it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I know. What was it? Philip, he's also dressed up as a Union soldier while investigating, and he believes that he might have had communication, and he feels bad because he thinks he upset it, but with a Confederate soldier because of the EVPs. And he's like, I felt terrible.
Right.
Because I think one of the EVPs is he's here to hurt me or something like that. So he was heartbroken. He's like, no, I'm not here to hurt you.
Yeah, and like I've noticed with like reenactments that does tend to stir things up when they do that, just that reliving all over again.
Yeah. My experiences in Gettysburg always happened around the 4th of July when they would reenact the battle.
Yeah.
So that's when most of the activity seems to occur up there, even though it's year round up there, but that's when it's triggered.
Yeah.
So I know you had mentioned you had a doctor's appointment, but are you good if we take a quick commercial break and come back to ask a few more questions?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, perfect. So Todd, whenever you're ready, we'll take a quick commercial break and be back in a few moments.
No matter the questions, Ellie Weisencell can help you find the answers. Ellie is a gifted intuitive and a natural energy healer, which she applies using the body code and emotion code healing systems, among others, to help you achieve balance for your best results. Are you looking for more clarity about which direction to follow with your life, health, or career? Let Ellie guide you. As a psychic, Ellie can provide clarity to the path you are on, so you may use your free will to change the direction of your life. Are you wanting to communicate with a loved one who's passed? As a certified psychic medium, Ellie Weisencell can connect you with your loved ones on the other side to facilitate healing or offer closure. To schedule your appointment with Ellie, look her up on Facebook at Ellie Weisencell Psychic Medium, or email her at elliewisencell@gmail.com. That's Ellie Weisencell, Weisensel.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Exploring the Paranormal. We're here with Natalie and we have just a few more moments left. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the comments and we will get to them. The few final questions I did have talks about some of your experiences that you've had. So what would you say was the most active location you've been to?
So that would be where we're going this weekend, as well as where we're holding our event in October. And that would be the Lost History Museum in Vallis Mines, Missouri. So Valley Mines it's Valley Mines. It is in the middle of the woods, in the middle of the boonies, and it's kind of got its own dome, its own little bubble out there. And the activity has changed over the years. Obviously, I've been going out there for almost 19 years now. And probably my 3 favorite stories I tell, which is going to sound absolutely terrifying. When I do say it, because then the people are going to be like, well, I don't want to go out there. So before they started doing the remodel and trying to fix things up now, there were 2 extra rooms that were known as the Rock Room. It had like a 3D model of the entire like mining town and all the mines. It had rocks from the property all the way around. And then in the next room in front of it was like an office. And hanging up on the wall above the desk was like an old like hatchet axe. And didn't think anything of it. So I'm standing in the foyer looking into those 2 rooms. And I have like the family living room sitting off to my right. That is where the rest of the team is. And they've got a spare box going. And all of a sudden there's a voice that comes through and it says, Natalie, watch out. So I step to the side closer to the living room where everyone else is. And I go, what did it say? And then we heard this loud thud. And we couldn't figure out what it was. So when I turned around and I looked at where I had been standing, the head of the axe that was hanging on the wall 2 rooms over was right where I had been standing. But the handle was missing. We couldn't find the handle for it. It was just the head. So we continued on with our investigation. And then as we were cleaning up and we turned lights back on, in that rock room, right by the door that goes into the office, there's a giant wagon wheel in the corner. The handle was on the floor behind it in the corner. And nobody was in those rooms. I mean, it was interesting. And then on that door for the foyer going into the rock room, there was like a heavy old metal chair. It's like 2 people to like lift it and put it up there. It lifted up off the door and caught me on the back of my heels as I was walking away. And then my favorite experience was when I had a full body apparition come up to me. So the house can't handle very many people because of it being so old and so small. So the guys on the team were inside. My mom and I were doing a perimeter walk, and we were heading towards one of the trails that leads up to what's called the Sophie McGuire Cemetery. And right next to the main house that we call the White House is the general store. And on the back of the general store, there's like a little spotlight up on the back, and there used to be a porta potty underneath it. As we were walking towards this porta potty, towards the trail, the porta potty starts to shake. And mind you, we're in the middle of the woods. I kind of thought, raccoon, possum, some type of wildlife was in the porta potty. And as we're walking, my mom and I are talking, and she's a little bit behind me. I'm walking ahead of her, and I've got EMF recorder, voice recorder, camcorder. Like I've got it all going in my hands at one time as we're walking because we're trying to document. And she goes, Natalie, stop. Doesn't register. I wasn't listening apparently because I was paying more attention to the fact that all of my equipment lit up, started going off, went crazy at the same time, and then everything died. And that was the beginning of our investigation. It was all brand new batteries. Like there's no way any of that stuff could have died. And I was like, and so I'm walking towards this porta potty because I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go check it out, scare the raccoon off, whatever. As I'm walking towards it, my mom goes, Natalie, you need to stop. And as she said that, I saw like the black silhouette of a head poke out from around the porta potty, and at the same time it stopped shaking. My mind still wasn't registering what I was looking at. Fight or flight is severely delayed for me apparently. Because I'm still standing here staring at this porta potty, and this silhouette steps out from behind the porta potty, stands straight up. He's directly, it looks like a male. I had the feeling of it being a male, was staying directly underneath that spotlight. So I should have been able to see through him, and I couldn't. It was just a solid black mass. I mean, I'm pretty short. I'm only 4'10". So everybody's taller than me, but I would say he was probably close to like 6'8", 6'10", maybe. Like he was pretty tall. But he starts to walk towards me. And I'm just standing there with my equipment in my hands, dumbfounded, trying to register what is happening. And he gets maybe 2-3 feet in front of me. And then I realize what's happening. I turn around. By this point, my mom is gone. She's already taken off. She is hiding behind the car. And I turn, and over the hood of the car I go. And when I stand up to turn back around, it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went to go tell everybody what had just happened and to check our equipment. And all of our equipment turned back on. It was fine.
Something didn't want you to catch proof that he was there.
Yeah. So that was always fun. That's probably one of my favorite stories to tell. But that was the event that made me a believer because, I believe that there was activity, that there's a possibility of all of this. I mean, I was a sensitive. I was seeing things as a child, but it just never really clicked for me until that experience. And then after that, I was like, all right, I am 100% absolutely a believer of this. You can't change my mind at this point.
So with those experiences, do they fit? Because the typical categories of one's your favorite. What would have been your scariest?
The axe. Because had whoever come through not told me, Natalie, watch out, it would have hit me.
Oh.
And that's the most terrifying thought.
Right.
Because I don't know, did it just like materialize and just fall to the floor? Did it fly through the two rooms and like come out? I don't know.
Right.
So that's a slightly terrifying thought. That rock room too, we did a communication circle in there. And we were trying to make contact, and you could hear on the audio and then in the video, you can hear the rocks moving, that they're sliding across the wooden like tables that they're on around the room. And they started pelting us on the back of our legs. And at night we walked out with like bruises and cuts up the back of our legs because of the rocks.
Interesting. Yeah, that's one of those where it's like you got to keep going back and investigating just to try to see if you can recreate it, and also, or even get the ghost to do it again.
Well, and the previous caretaker, his health has declined. So the last few years, it's kind of been just left to deteriorate. And the new owner that's taking over and that's managing the property, he's trying to fix it up. So we actually just had a dumpster out there the other day, and we were trying to clean up the place. So I'm hoping this weekend we get a lot of activity. Because hopefully they're very thankful that we're fixing the place up now and bringing it back to life. So I'm excited about that.
Cool. And one final question before I let you go is, when helping clients, have you ever had a situation where you couldn't help a client?
Yes, on two different fronts. So the first one is going to be when you're dealing with mental health. Sometimes no matter how much proof you give a client, you can't make them believe that it is or is not paranormal. Normally, they're convinced it is. You can provide all the evidence and show that it is not. Maybe they're on drugs. Maybe their medications are causing them to hallucinate. But they have been so convinced, and potentially other individuals have told them that this is what is there, that there's no convincing them otherwise. And at that point, there is nothing more as an investigator that I can do except give them the resources to try and get help from the mental side. But at that point, I have to walk away from it. And then there's been a case a couple of times where it's been more than the team can handle. It's a lot deeper, it's a lot darker. And if I don't believe that my team that I have is capable of doing it, I don't drop the client. I find somebody who can help them and then pass it off from there, but not just leave them. So there's been a couple of cases where, the reality is that I don't know everything about the paranormal. I never claim I do. And, you have to do the best that you can with what you've got and, hope that it's enough.
Right. Yeah. And that actually brought up one more quick question. How do you help someone, or how do you actually let go of a client because they're not doing what you've asked them to do? For example, like you need them to go to church and get, rebaptized, or you need them to clean up their home because maybe the chaos in their home is causing the activity, and they just, or, don't even want to go see a doctor if that's what you request.
You can let them know. You can tell them what you would like for them to do.
Mhm.
But sometimes you have to just be blunt in
Mhm.
a nice kind of way, if that's even
Yeah.
possible. I want to help you. I want to be able to get you the assistance you need, but I can't do all the work for you.
Mhm.
I can't call people to come out and clean your home. You've got to do that yourself. I can I can give you phone numbers. I can give you contact information. I can give you everything. But it's like the saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink.
Right.
And that's what I end up telling them. Like, I want to help you. And when you decide that you are ready to move forward and to make these changes or to go to these appointments, feel free to reach out. And I will happily reopen this case and help you at that point. But at this point, there's nothing more I can do.
Right. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. And I've been in that situation one too many times.
Right.
Yeah. And it's heartbreaking too, because, I've had clients crying that they're not crazy. And it's like, I get that you're not crazy, but go to the doctor.
Right.
Just make sure nothing else is wrong.
Yeah.
Something else could be wrong bringing the activity to you.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't realize how health is connected to paranormal activity.
Seizures can cause hallucinations and stuff like that. So, and speaking as somebody who has seizures, who deals with mental health personally,
Right.
Those are things that even as an investigator, I have to check for myself to make sure that, I am capable of doing the job that needs to be done.
Right. Yep, exactly. Been a pleasure having you today. Super excited. I was looking forward to today's chat. Before you go, can you just let everybody know where they can find you if they need help or if they want to attend any one of your events that you might be hosting in the future?
Sure. So you can look up Darkly Obscured Paranormal Investigations on Facebook and find us. Our Facebook pretty much has all of our links for all of our other sites. You can go to Patreon at Darkly Obscured. YouTube also will have Darkly Obscured Paranormal Investigations. TikTok, Darkly Obscured. We occasionally throw up some videos on there. Usually it's for promotions. But we've got an investigation this Saturday at Velas Mines. It's $75 a person. You can add on camping for $25. We still have 11 tickets left for that, but they've been selling pretty quick. So if anybody's interested, they can do that. We've also got our event in October, which is the annual Ghost Roundup. It's going to be at Velas Mines. We're going to have vendors, food trucks, presenters, workshops. And then it's from 2 to 11. And then from midnight to 5, we're going to be doing an investigation. And one of my investigators, Sarah, she is posting the links in the comments. So you should be able to see those. But I'm also happy to send those over to you if you want to share them.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, definitely we'll share them and put them up on my page as well and get them added to the YouTube replay that I'll have up on as well, because we're actually live. In addition to WLTKDB radio, talk radio, I have it going live to my YouTube channel. So I'll make sure I get that added to that as well in the future. But thank you again for joining. Hopefully I can have you on again in the future to hear more about some of the events that you're hosting.
Absolutely. I look forward to it.
Perfect. Thank you. You have a great day.
Thanks for having me.
Yep. So amazing conversation. Thank you everybody for joining in, commenting, and asking questions. Super excited. Like I said, I'll get those links up for you. And I also have a copy of her bio that I will post as well. And Sarah is continuing to share. So thank you, Sarah, for getting that information up in the comments so you guys can check that out and get that going. So super great conversation. Love chatting and learning about different things from different investigators. And I just wish I lived closer, because that October event sounds like a lot of fun. And I'd love to attend that and see everybody in action there. But who knows? Maybe I can get out there and check it out beforehand or even during the event. So you never know what can happen. If you guys, we still have some time. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. Next week, we do have Joe Frankie coming on. One thing I love about Joe is he comes on the show, I ask one question and he takes it away, and I don't have to do much work. So next week I won't be doing too much work, but you guys are getting all the Joe you can handle, because also on Thursday night, we have our second episode of Passport to the Paranormal at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central. So we will be talking about some of our experiences, have a opportunity to get to know your show hosts, And then I do believe we have some, let me just double check my schedule. We do have some guests scheduled to come on. Because it's later in the night, some people who can't be on the morning show are actually coming on. Yeah, so next week on Passport to the Paranormal, we are going to have the guests of Get Haunted Crew to talk about some of their upcoming events and different things that they are doing. And then on the 29th, we are going to have an episode, Children of the Paranormal, which is going to have my son Aiden on, as well as Joe's two daughters, Emily and Haley, to discuss kind of what it was like growing up in the paranormal field and what it was like to have paranormal parents, I guess you would say. So we're going to have fun. And the one thing I love about the show that Joe and I are going to do is like this one, there's really no agenda, just chit chat back and forth. If you guys have questions and you can't be on the show live, you could always message them to me and say, hey, Heather, this is for your show. Just let me know which show you want me to talk about it, and I will answer it. So then when you watch the replay, you can definitely check that out as well. And Joe and I, if I can, he's busy. So Joe, if you're watching this, I'm not picking on you, even though I am, but he's been extremely busy lately. We have a lot of things going on. I know there's a couple different events that him and I have been asked to speak at. We're just trying to finalize the details. And I'm also working, what else am I doing? Kind of trying to wrap things up. I'm in the process of a couple different things. We are going to be planning some different events at lighthouses, working with a few people on creating weekend retreats, paranormal retreats in Florida, and then we're going to spread across the country. And also, I don't think it's going to happen until next spring, but I am in the process on working on a almost like an event tour, book signing tour, and a couple different things out in Vegas and in that area. So keep those fingers crossed that everything works out the way it should. And definitely lots of things to do. So next week, looking forward to having Joe on. You guys know he tells great stories with his experiences. I do have some new information. He was working, of course, he's not going to give information on who it was or any personal details, but he was recently working on 2 different cases that he said he can share information about what happened, experiences, to kind of help you guys or new investigators learn more about what to do in these different situations. So he's definitely a great guy to have on and talk about all the different things to do. Need to watch show. Yep. Okay. Yeah, Sarah, October event sounds like it's going to be a blast. Definitely need to get there. And Natalie, yes, we all love Joe Frankie. I don't know if you guys saw on our Passport to the Paranormal page or on the WLTKDB radio talk radio group, I shared a photo of Joe with a recreation of the Annabelle from the actual movies, not the Raggedy Ann doll, but the Hollywood version of Annabelle. And that was from Phantasm last year when him and I were there speaking at an event along with Bill and Chris. So we were having a lot of fun over there, and definitely a fun weekend. And I love that photo. I think I'm going to recreate it to make some fun memes. From that weekend, I have a lot of things that I can make memes for of Joe, which can be fun, picking on him and doing a whole bunch of different things with that. So the Lighthouse events sound so cool. Yes, actually the Lighthouse events, I know we're in the process of trying to do one at St. Augustine. And how we're going to do it, it's more of a retreat. So if it works out the way we're hoping it works out, the first one we want to do is St. Augustine Lighthouse, but we might end up doing either Fort Jefferson or the Jupiter Lighthouse, just because those are, or even a Key West Lighthouse. But we kind of want to set it up to where like everybody arrives on Friday and we get together for a dinner, kind of like, sit around the campfire and just chit chat back and forth, followed by Saturday we would go to a location, whether it was a banquet hall or just somewhere, and we would more or less have classes where we would talk about different types of things, and each investigation would be, or each retreat would be based on a different topic or on a specific topic. And then that evening it would be dinner and then the paranormal investigation. And then Sunday morning would be a brunch to where everybody could talk about their experiences and kind of go on from there. So definitely looking forward to that. Hopefully we can get things going. Actually, I probably should call him today, the person who's working on setting that up for us and helping with that. But Joe and I thought it would be perfect because my Haunted Florida Lighthouse book comes out later this year. And he wrote the foreword to it, and he loves lighthouses. So we figured that was the perfect pair to get the two of us together. And between the two of us, more than 70 years experience in the field, and that is going to make for some interesting and fun events. So hopefully it works out. Keep your fingers crossed for me, guys, and that we get that going. So super excited for everything. And I think I'm just going to look through my notes real quick. Okay, so I know there's a couple different things. Actually, ghost education, I want to go back to that real quick so that way you guys can have an idea of what we're doing. Like I said, we have John Zaffis joining us next week. Then on July 5th, we have special guest Blake Best. July 19th, make sure you guys mark your calendars for this one because this is going to be a fun one. It is a panel discussion on Ouija boards. Poor Joe, he is the only person who signed up to be on that panel to talk about why you shouldn't use Ouija boards. Other than that, we have the Sin City Witch joining us. The Connor sisters will be on that call, as well as I need to confirm with it, but so a couple people from the Talking Board organization. I can't remember the exact name, but they will be on as well. Then on August 2nd, I have a special guest, Reverend Sean Whittington. He is going to be on the show talking about all things paranormal. As you guys know, I love Sean. He is one of my dear friends from the Vegas area. Recently, he was on the Legion of Exorcists, which I find a really good show, but I do have some questions that I want to ask him about some things that were said. And of course, that's what I like about talking to him is we may not agree, but we still can talk about it. And Monday, if you guys watch on my Facebook pages, I am actually going to be a guest on his show Monday night. So stay tuned for that. This is one of my favorite topics, science and the paranormal. And Robert Bradley is going to be doing a presentation. He's done a presentation before for us on using the scientific method in the paranormal field and how to adapt it. Then we have Paranormal Roundtable of Collecting Evidence. Special guest Nick Carboni and his co-host Sean from Old World Paranormal will be joining us. Philip is working on a fun presentation, and then we welcome back the Haunted Librarian on a presentation on how to host a haunted house for Halloween. So perfect for those of you guys wanting to host a haunted house and everything there. Oh, Jamie Lynn, no problem. As you know, it'll be available for replay on all the different channels. And then I'll be sharing my podcast link and everything so you guys can check it out. So again, great show today. Thank you guys for participating. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for watching. Definitely stay in touch. If you guys have any questions, you guys know, even if the show's not airing, you can reach out to me. I'm more than happy to talk all things paranormal. You'd think I'd get tired of it, but I don't. You can find me, of course, Exploring the Paranormal Show on Facebook or on WLTK-DB Talk Radio. You can also find me on YouTube at Dr. Heather Leigh. Pinterest is Heather Leigh PhD. And then on Facebook, also at Dr. Heather Leigh. Or if you want to learn more about some of the experiences and excursions that my team is doing, that's at Exploration Paranormal. We also do have a Patreon that is set up with a whole bunch of different tiers. That's what I wanted to talk about. But you have your general supporting tier so you can get the, behind the scenes information. There's one tier that also includes one-on-one calls with me and my team. There's one where you can get shamanic life coaching included in the cost. And then, of course, sponsorship levels for this show. And then also the Passport to the Paranormal show. So make sure you check that out. I'll be getting the links out again and sharing that. But if you guys have any questions, again, you can reach out to me. I know I say that 100 times, but I can't stress that enough because I love talking to people and chatting about this. So again, see you guys next week when Joe Frankie joins us for a talk about all things paranormal. And we'll see you guys in a week. Have a great day.
The truth is here and now on WLTK-DB Talk Radio at WLTKDB.com.